Donald Trump indicted once again. The Republican nominee hit with a superseding indictment from special counsel Jack Smith. That case has been on hold after the Supreme Court granted Trump partial immunity for official acts taken as president. And that distinction, official versus private acts, is central to this new indictment. Smith's office writes this, quote, "The defendant had no official responsibilities related to the certification proceeding, but he did have a personal interest as a candidate in being named the winner of the election." Trump, responding in a lengthy multi-part statement on his Truth Social platform, says, quote, "This is merely an attempt to interfere with the election." Or, as he put it more succinctly in a follow-up post, quote, "Persecution of a political opponent." The reignition of the case underscores that November's election has uniquely personal stakes for Donald Trump. If he wins, Trump will once again wield the awesome powers of the presidency, including the legal authority to shut this and any other federal case against him down. At the core of the case are Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election, culminating on January 6th, 2021.
We have stormed the Capitol. We are to the steps of the Capitol, to the very top, and it looks like we're trying to breach the Capitol building. There's a time when strong action is needed. I'm sorry. Pence is a traitor, but we still...
What, of course, you are seeing is footage obtained by CNN, airing for the first time here on CNN this morning, of January 6th, and the evacuation of lawmakers, including then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. It was filmed by her daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, as part of an HBO documentary. It was turned over to Congress, and it shows how Pelosi reacted when she was told she'd have to evacuate the Capitol and go to Fort McNair.
I do not appreciate this. I don't support this. I live in the Capitol like this. We cannot let them disrupt what we're doing.
And the footage shows her questioning how the Capitol could possibly have been unprepared for what happened that day.
How many times did the members ask, are we prepared? Are we prepared? We're not. Prepared for the worst. We're calling the National Guard. Now, we should have been here to start out. I just don't understand this. I just don't understand this. Why do we empower people this way by not being ready? I feel responsible. We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had been. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more, because it's stupid that we should be in a situation like this, because they thought they had what? They thought these people would act civilized? They thought these people gave a damn? Shame on us.
Pelosi is seen slamming Capitol security for their lack of preparation. Still, she saved her strongest rebuke for Donald Trump as she prepared and considered whether they were going to again impeach the outgoing president.
We take an oath to protect our country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. There is a domestic enemy in the White House. And let's not mince words about this.
Let's not mince words about this. Marcus Childress did not actually leave the show earlier, even though I said thank you. You're the former investigative counsel for the January 6th committee. Some of what we saw there was from January 7th, where Pelosi is now the morning after, digesting what has happened. And there's a little bit more footage I want to play for you also. She's driving in a car on her way in on January 7th on the phone with her aides about what they're going to do to try to respond to what they had just seen. Let's watch that.
I think our focus has to be on the president. Let's not divert ourselves. I don't want to have it on a par with the insurrection and the impeachment and the rest of that. If they ask, I will respond, but I'm not doing it on a park because it's a diversionary tactic.
Understood.
So that's actually arguing with her longtime aide, Drew Hamill, and Hamill was noting that she should call in the speech she was about to make for the resignation of the chair of the Capitol Police Board, Stephen Sund. And she's saying, I don't want to do that. I want to keep this focus on Donald Trump. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, but this does kind of illuminate how she was thinking about Trump himself in that moment, and especially that line, he needs to pay a price.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaway from January 6th, even to this day, right now, is the fragility of the peaceful transfer of power, right? And that's a core tenet of our, I know we use the term democracy, and it's not really popular right now on the campaign trail, but it is a tenet of talking points, is it's real fragile. And I think what you see here is Speaker Pelosi saying that, but for the actions of Donald Trump, not acting in his capacity as president, but acting as a candidate who wanted to keep power, Capitol Police wouldn't have had to respond. National Guard wouldn't have had to respond, just like every other election in American history. And so I think she's appropriately pointing at the leadership, pointing at the head that was actually inspiring, sowing doubt into our election, and wanting to keep the focus there in those important moments after January 6th.
Yeah, and it's worth, sorry, Stephen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's so fascinating about that, and following on from your point, that key phrase, he needs to pay a price, it explains so much of what's happened in the subsequent years. At that point, it would be impossible for us to imagine that there's a way back politically for Donald Trump. Yet his strength in the Republican Party was such that within 3 or 4 weeks of that, Kevin McCarthy was down at Mar-a-Lago. And the speaker's reaction there helps us understand why she was so active in recent weeks about trying to change the Democratic ticket, because she believed that this, under President Joe Biden, was a ticket that couldn't thwart a return of Donald Trump. And what she's seeing there is why she believes that a second Trump term could be so dangerous for the country. It's like, it's a full circle moment, that footage.
Yeah.
Look, I always take issue kind of with the thought that McCarthy legitimized Trump or gave him kind of a path back. I mean, Kevin McCarthy is now not in power. The voters legitimized Trump. I mean, look, I was there. He won a primary. I think it was very important for the party.
Right, but he was not. I mean, that photo that Kevin McCarthy took just a handful of weeks after going down to the floor and saying that he bore some responsibility. I mean, the 180. I mean, I remember talking to.
Right,
but McCarthy
gave him a lifeline. Let me just make that point. Yeah. But McCarthy, the Republican primary voters didn't just say, Kevin McCarthy, I'm going to listen to him. No, McCarthy was in response to the primary voters, and that I think it was a little bit the opposite. He was seeing what was out.
You're saying that the tail was wagging the dog.
Exactly. It was not like Kevin McCarthy's not, yeah.
Well, look, McCarthy gave him a lifeline, but I think what we're sleeping on here is what Stephen mentioned earlier, is that Trump's doing all this again. He said that Kamala Harris going to the top of the ticket, or that you said, Marcus, is a coup. He's sowing that doubt. He's going to work his supporters up, and if she wins, we're going to see
the damage was done. To your point, the damage was done by January 6th, January 7th of 2021. For 5-6 months, all you had heard from the candidate Trump out on the campaign trail was that he was being cheated, he was being rigged through mail-in voting. This election was fraudulent. The same thing we're hearing right now. It's not just from the candidate either. You're hearing it from all of his surrogates. You're hearing it from other members of Congress. So the damage was done. You can't now turn around and tell your base that it is a lawful election. I think that's why it is such a red flag right now to start seeing some of the big lie rhetoric return back to the campaign trail, and why we outlined in our report for January 6th the long prelude before the actual day of January 6th. If you look at our report, we don't get to January 6th till chapter 8. Right? We're talking about what led to that day on the campaign trail, who was the president of the United States, who was not acting as president, but acting as a candidate to keep power.
Marcus Childress, I'm going to go through kind of look and see, because we've seen some of this just in recent weeks since Harris was at the top of the ticket, of how these conversations are playing out. Look at perhaps how they played out before. Maybe we'll have you back. Thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate it.